Welcome, everyone. I'm Neil Cavuto. Signed, sealed, and Republicans, well, delirious. Apoplectic, more the word, over a president they say is now out of control after signing no fewer than 23 executive orders he says will help curb gun violence. But they say make a mockery of the Constitution. Things like requiring federal agencies to provide all relevant data to a beefed-up background check system, improving incentives for states to share that data of their own for that background system, and expanding the Affordable Care Act to include allowing doctors to ask their patients, do you have guns in your home? No wonder constitutional lawyer Mark Levin is hitting the roof. He joins me on the phone. Mark, this has got to be a record in a single day, does it not? This many executive orders?
Oh, yeah, and they're only just starting. Neil, what do any of these 23 have to do with what happened in Newtown? I've studied all 23 of them now. They have absolutely nothing to do with the mass murder that took place in Connecticut. Zero. And the president won't be asked about it. Now, I've gone through these. It's a weird collection of proposals here. First of all, we have Obama ordering himself to order certain members of administration to do things that they should have been doing anyway, like enforcing existing law, talking to each other, making sure they're trained up and everything. Why does the president have to issue executive orders? Can't he call in his cabinet and say that? That's number one. There's lots of talk in here about training and educating, including first responders and local law enforcement. Does the president know that these SWAT teams and these other teams of first responders are the best qualified, most experienced, most trained up of everybody to handle situations like this? But here's the problem. There are certain things in his executive orders that are un-American. In some ways, they're even fascistic. Doctors are private citizens. Do we really want doctors reporting to the federal government if they think somebody might have violent tendencies? Do we really want to discourage people who have mental health issues or people bringing them in to see their doctor because they may become part of a national law enforcement database? How is that going to prevent any crime? Do you know a tiny fraction of a percentage of murders occur from mentally ill people? I mean, there's no connection between reality and what this president is proposing, whether it's Newtown, whether it's violence on the street. What we need is criminal control. It's not a problem with mentally ill people. It's not a problem with people who legally have arms. It's not a problem with a whole bunch of people that this thing seems to address. And here's a bigger problem. Not only does he use the Obamacare law to force doctors to report on their patients. And by the way, here's a question. Let's say a doctor doesn't report on a patient because he doesn't think a patient's dangerous. And that patient goes out and kills somebody. And the family of the person who's killed says that doctor had a legal obligation under Obama's executive order number 16 to report it. And the doctor says, well, I didn't know. That doctor now is going to be caught up in litigation forever over whether he failed to report or should have reported, and I can give you 1,000 examples like that. But these are private citizens now being deputized by the federal government to report potentially violent patients to the federal government. I mean, I'm sure all the left-wing civil rights groups and the left-wing Democrat groups will go nuts over that.
Well, let me ask you about that feature in the Affordable Care Act, or making a far more liberal interpretation of what it's allowed to do. Already an act that many have argued is unconstitutional in and of itself. But the idea of sort of weeding out or trying to telegraph nut jobs. What is wrong with a system, or trying to develop a system to spot them before they act?
It's like rounding up 1 million people to find 10 criminals. You know, we don't do that normally in this country. I mean, what Obama didn't talk about is what he's going to do about gang violence, what he's going to do about drug violence, what he's going to do about the high murder rate in Chicago and Detroit and other cities, which none of this will have any impact on whatsoever.
So do executive actions or orders like this, Mark, hold up? I mean, you know, when Franklin Roosevelt was famously trying to pack the Supreme Court, you know, afterwards, they came down and said, you went too far, Mr. President. How long does that take, and what's the process? I mean, we have almost 24 executive actions taken today. How long, how many get undone?
Well, unlike Obama, Franklin Roosevelt actually proposed legislation, and his own Democrat House and Senate, his own vice president, the former Speaker of the House, refused to pack the court. Obama doesn't believe in legislation. He believes in executive fiat. I believe this is unconstitutional, the attempt to compel private citizens to report on private citizens under the guise that it might save a child. Well, you know, we could deputize everybody in this country to report on fellow citizens under the guise.
What about the 22 other orders?
Well,
Maybe he, by blitzing this out today, he made it more difficult for guys like you to pick him apart. That he might figure, well, the majority of these 23 are going to get held up, and I'm going to win.
I'd say about half of these are absolute crap, just PR junk that he put together with his cabinet on, I'm ordering you to do a report. You know, well, good for him. Why doesn't he just do it? Hasn't he been president for 4 years? But those aren't the ones that bother me. I'll give you another example. He's going to issue a presidential memorandum directing the Centers for Disease Control to research the causes and prevention of gun violence. That's an illegal executive order. The Centers for Disease Control are forbidden by federal law to undertake studies like that for two reasons. Number one, the attempt to through the back door to treat gun ownership in the Second Amendment as a health issue. So they spit out and gin up these phony political reports. Congress said, no, you can't do that. Number two, about 80% of the professors in this country work for public colleges that are subsidized by federal and state governments. If they want to do reports, they can do reports. And the fact of the matter is there are hundreds of reports like this, including by the great John Lott. And what do they demonstrate? They demonstrate that the Brady Act and these other acts haven't done a damn thing to reduce crime in this country.
So, real quickly, the idea of doing this, I think, is as much for the PR, even down with the backdrop of the kids and all of this, to say, look, I'm the President of the United States. I'm taking executive action to do something about this. Look at Congress. They don't do squat. What do you make of that?
I think some of that's true. I think there are a couple of things in here that are poison pills, though. The attempt to nationalize the medical profession and have doctors reporting their clients to the federal government. This is 1930 stuff. The American people need to rise up against that. The medical profession needs to say no. Also, he clearly wants a national database where all innocent, law-abiding citizens who purchase guns are on a national database. Can I ask you a question? What does that do? I can understand a national database of criminals. Why do you need a national database of American citizens who own guns? What's that for?
Whatever database it is, I'm sure you're on it. Mark Levin, always good chatting.
All right, my brother. God bless.
All right, the great one, as I call him. Well, meanwhile, you enact it. How about this? We won't enforce it. That is a message coming from a sheriff out in Oregon. Tim,